Do you ever wonder, how is it an artist makes a painting look like it's going into the distance? You know, like it feels, even though it's just a flat surface, it feels three-dimensional and it goes way back into the distance. I'm going to teach you that today. Today is Feedback Friday. We're going to look at all the paintings we're going to give feedback about, and we're going to talk about what's called atmospheric perspective, and that's how to make things look like they're going into the distance. I'm going to teach you a couple tricks with that. And when you watch this, you're going to start seeing problems, because what we're going to do is on Feedback Friday, we look at your paintings that you've submitted, and then we show you how to make them better. Sometimes we can't make them better. So we want you to ask yourself questions when you see this, because it's going to be other people's paintings in most cases, and that's actually a better way to learn. You ask yourself, what would I change? What do I see? Because this is part of the learning process, right? A critical part of learning is getting feedback, because we can't see our own mistakes. We can't see what's drawing the eye. We're too close to the painting, and what's distracting from the goal of the painting. So for me, I like to see other people's paintings critiqued, because then I can go, oh yeah, I did that in my last painting too. Because I get a little defensive, right? Somebody's telling me a little bit about, oh, you know, you need to do this, you need to do that. I'm like, oh, I can't hear it because I'm too busy going through pain. Anyway, we think you're going to be able to see more clearly through the eyes of others. So let's get the show officially started.
It's Art School Live with Eric Rhoads. Now, here's your host, Eric Rhoads.
Welcome to Art School Live. Today is Feedback Friday. We need a little jingle. Let's see. Feedback Friday. Oh, I'm sorry. Anyway, we're here every weekday at 12 noon Eastern. We have free art lessons in the middle of the week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. We have art marketing guidance on Mondays, and we have Feedback Fridays, where we critique paintings. I'm the publisher of art magazines, Fine Art Connoisseur, Plein magazine, a bunch of newsletters. I judge a lot of art competitions. The biggest one is the Art Renewal Center competition, which is kind of like the big daddy of them all. Also very involved in judging the Plein Air Salon, which is also a big daddy of them all. So I've got a couple of decades of paintings behind me, a lot of brush mileage, and maybe, if I'm lucky, I might be able to see something in your painting you can improve. If you're lucky, I might be able to see something you can improve. But at least I'll give you a different perspective on it, if nothing else. So I'm kind of a no rules guy. I hate rules. I just took a test to find out, a personality test to find out what I'm like. I know you can go into the chat and say, what did it say? Well, what it said is, it said, I'm a true rebel. You know, I never like to conform to anything. I don't like rules. So the rule in this particular case, though, is be constructive. We had a plein air convention one time, and somebody was doing critiques, no names, and the person doing critiques made somebody cry. We don't want to do that. And we don't have people back that do that, right? Because that's just not the right way to do it. We're here to lift people up, to be generous, to be loving. And so we want to always be constructive. If you're tearing into somebody, if you're doing critiques for some other people, which you should be, because you'll learn by doing critiques. I learned, I'll be doing a painting and I'll go, oh, I made this mistake. It's something I learned from your painting the other day, right? You don't want people to give up, to give in. I've seen that happen too many times. Everybody is at a different stage. And so, the first thing you might see a painting and go, you don't want to do that, right? Because you should celebrate the fact that somebody is giving it a shot and trying it. And so don't belittle them. Don't tear them down. We love everybody. I had, when I first started painting, I had a guy, he took me aside in the art class, kind of off to the side, which was good. At least he didn't do it in front of everybody else. He said, listen, this isn't working out very well. Eric, you really don't have what it takes to become a painter. You know, some people just don't have it. You don't have it. And I was devastated. I left the class all wounded, and I went home and I took all my art supplies in my studio area and I threw it in a box and I threw it in the basement. And I just didn't paint for a couple of years. It really wounded me, but then I kind of got the desire back. So I ended up with another instructor, and he heard about that, and he was furious. You know, how dare he say something like that? We want to encourage people. And he did. He helped me. Anyway, don't do this. Don't do it to yourself. I don't want to belabor that point. So anyway, we're going to get it on. So how to submit your paintings? Just go to streamlinepublishing.com. That's my little company. And it's streamlinepublishing.com/feedback. Now, if you do make changes to your painting, send them to us. We'd love to see what changes you've made. Okay, you guys ready? Let's look at what we're going to do today, because we forgot to do that at the top of the show. We have, I'm just going to go ahead. Let's flip through them, and so we can see what each of them is. I'm seeing these kind of for the first time. So interesting stuff. And it's nice to see them smaller, because when you see them big, you know, they get in your face. You can't kind of see the perspective on them. When I'm doing life drawing, which I'm doing right now, I posted on my Instagram last night my new setup for life drawing or drawing. I'm going to do a cast drawing, and I have to set it up so that I step back so that I can get my perspective right, because if you're too close, you don't get your perspective right. Okay, so let's do this. What's the first one we're going to do today? Oh, we have a kid on the beach. Now, what we typically do is we start out with a black and white. And the reason we do that is there's a concept. We even talked about it on the show yesterday, or a couple days ago. Maybe it was Wednesday. And it was color gets all the credit, but value does all the heavy lifting, does all the work. And that's really true. So you want to look at things in terms of a value painting, a black and white painting, to see if the values are right. And what I like to be able to do is I like to check the composition. First off, what I do is I put a line dead center down the painting. And that allows me to check a couple of critical things. See, when we were in kindergarten, they always said, put everything in the middle. And we all got taught that this is how, you know, you're making a painting or a drawing, that everything should be in the middle. And there are times when that works, but there's not a critical, it's not a critical thing. As a matter of fact, paintings are more interesting when they're not in the middle. What people tend to do is they put the horizon line right down the middle, and you did not do that. This is Laura Arroz from New Mexico. Congrats, Laura. My brother lives out there. So what you want to do is try to put your horizon line up somewhere, like up here, which you've done. So that's good job on that. The other thing we want to see is, do we have anything along this line that's like really drawing the eye, like a mast or something? And we don't, so that's good. Now we do what I call the tic-tac-toe board, which is basically take the painting and divide it into equal thirds. And so this is roughly equal thirds. It's not exactly perfect. And then, you know, tic-tac-toe board it in equal thirds across the side. And what we want to do is we want to look, first off, you did your composition, you put your horizon line there, so that's good. You put your focal point, which is your little boy, on these two grids. And so his face is here. Face is usually more focal point, and then the rest of him is here. That works really nicely. And your line of rocks is kind of in this area, and they're leading here. So that's really an A+ composition. Really, really nice job on this. The other thing that we're going to look is we're going to see about value contrast. Are our values dark enough? It's a little hard to tell in this particular case. But the thing that I noticed right away is my eye. You want to ask yourself, where do you want the eye to go? And I think what you want to happen is you want the eye to go to this kid that's fishing, right? And you've got all this really great white splash, and that's going to give contrast against the kid. But because this rock is in so much light in here, the first thing I saw was all that light. And that's not, the first thing I see should be probably something either leading me in or the topic, the subject himself. So what if we were to pick maybe a darker value or middle value, and what if we were just, maybe that's not the right value, let's see if we can find something different. There we go. What if we were to just kind of get rid of some of this bright white and get, maybe get some rocks or something in here, but do something so that this is not drawing all the attention. And do you see how that changes it now? All of a sudden, I'm able to look at the kid and it's not drawing my eye away. And then what you can do is you can take your white waves and you can enhance them, wherever you want to. I mean, you could, if you had your wave going up here, you can enhance them to make sure that you're giving a really nice silhouette to this kid that's painting, so that you're like, oh, wow, that really draws it up. So what we've done is we've made the silhouette bigger here. The white on the silhouette, we brought it up here. And now what we're doing is we're really drawing attention to the kid. And that's a beautiful thing. So that's what I would do with it. Let's look at the color version of it. Nice job on this, really, by the way. Okay, so now you see that, this is Loury Arrows in New Mexico. Okay, now we're going to just go through the same exercise and do the color. First off, I think your colors are spot on. I think your values are really strong. I can't tell, but it looks like the drawing of the kid is a little bit off. He looks a little bit big in here to support this body. So it looks like maybe you work on your drawing just a little bit. Let's just do that for a second. Let's see, it looks like this just needs to come down just a little bit more, just to make him feel a little skinnier. And so maybe that helps a little bit. And then maybe just get a little something up under that arm so it doesn't, now he looks, I made him look really strange. So I don't want to do that. But anyway, it just feels like it's a little thick. And so let's just fix that just a little bit. And I think that helps a lot. You had some light on the shoulders, and that works really well. But you want to make sure you get some color in that light, so it's not just pure white. And especially if this is on looks like maybe darker skin. So maybe you want to just make sure that you've got a color, pick a color that's going to work with the darker skin, that's going to read like light, and maybe something like that. Get a little light on the top of his head, maybe a little light on his face. Just now that makes him stand out a little bit more, maybe a little light on part of his body. Now, that, I think his hair to me looks a little bit large as well. So I would probably just say, and again, I don't know the person, but it looks like, see, it looks more normal now. And so now we just go back into what we were doing before, and we get rid of this yellow. See how that yellow is drawing the eye so much? We just get rid of that. And now what's going to happen is our eye is going right up here to this kid and this young man painting. And that strengthens it. And then, you never, ever, very rarely ever use pure white. You use off-white, you use blues, you use different things that will create the sense of white, but you want to make sure that you're not making it too pure white. And so you could do it something like that. And now that splash up there, and you could maybe increase get a little bit of a warmer white in there, just in a couple of spots, just so it's just kind of right up there by him, drawing attention, and see what a difference that makes. And then all this other stuff is meaningless, right? So all this stuff over here, in here, you really don't need that. It's nice, but you could mute it all back just a little bit, and it would draw less attention in here, even though you're going to see the waves splashing very little of it, but now you've got most of it up into here, and I think that makes a difference. Anyway, good job on that, Lori. It's tough for me. Okay, what's next? All right, we have another landscape painting. This one is Lisa from Scotland. Lisa, you're a good painter. Congratulations. Very nice job. Now, there's a couple of things that that I see on this, but let's just go through. Let's go through the process. It's a really lovely painting, by the way. We're going to go through dead center, and oh, look there, Lisa. We have a horizon line on the dead center over here, and so what we might want to consider. We also, let's just see, go dead center. We have a bump right here. That's not too egregious, but I would say what we might want to do is consider either move the horizon line up a little bit, so bring your mountains up here a little bit, composition, and then more lead in, or the other option is to go the opposite direction, bring your horizon line down lower and have your mountains kind of go like that. And then you don't have so much white space in here. So I don't know which is the correct way to go. You can play with it. But the other thing I'm looking at is the values. And you have to create a sense of atmospheric perspective, which is you want to create something that makes the painting go back in distance. And I'm going to talk about that in detail this morning, this afternoon, whatever it is. Anyway, we'll talk more about that, but I would say that you've got a pretty strong dark here, but this dark here is equally as strong. And so what's happening is that it's not feeling like it's going back in distance. And so if we were to create something a little less strong, and let's see if this helps it, that's not going to do it quite. Let's do it just a little less like that. So what that does, and even these darks back in here, be careful if you get too dark back in there, it's not going to read like distance. So just by doing that, it helps it read distance. I like to do what's called push distance. There's an artist, fabulous artist by the name of Frank Serrano. One thing he's taught me by looking at his work is he always pushes the distance. He always makes it push back further than it actually is. And it just makes his paintings so much more pleasing. And I've started learning to do that too. So when you push that back, that helps. Now you want your good strong dark in the front, and you've got a good strong dark. I would probably get some of that dark up in here a little bit, just to create a little something. The other thing is that this painting feels a little off balance to me. It's like we've got this big mass, and it feels to me like we need a little balance. And so maybe to get some balance, maybe I just put something in here, just something smaller in here to kind of give it some balance. I don't know what that would be. Maybe it's a continuation of this rock in here, just to help it a little bit. And then I think overall looking pretty good. There's a line in here, and it looks like a snow line going up. And so I want to look at the color version and see what that does. This is really pretty. Let's see if I can find it in here. Here we go. Is that it? Yeah. Okay, this is Lisa in Scotland. Okay, Lisa, now that I'm in the color, I can get a much better feel for this. And I think what we talked about was probably correct. Now, the question I have is, where do you want the eye to go? What is the most important thing in this painting? I'm going to tell you that if it were me painting it, the most important thing in this painting are these distant mountains, right? That's really where I want the eye to go. But you know where the first thing the eye sees is this yellow mark right here. So if I have this yellow here, and I know what you're doing. I mean, I see these things all the time too, and I like that. And but what's happening is it's drawing the eye. So if we were to go in here and maybe just mute this back, maybe you can show a little of that yellow, but not a lot of it. And what that does is it's not drawing the eye away. Now the question is, how do we draw the eye back here? And I don't know the answer to that yet without playing with this, but we're going to go in here and we're going to just fuss with this. We're going to make this, it looks like you used black, and you got to be careful with black because it's kind of a dominant color. And so I'm going to put this in a blue, a kind of a gray blue, and I'm just going to push it back. And I look at this and I squint, and that helps. Now there's a snow line in here, and this snow line's drawing my attention. So I'm just going to get rid of it because I want to, you know, maybe that snow line is in here a little bit, but I really want the eye to go, you know, the eye is going to go where the white is. And so maybe we put the snow line in to draw people back. And so if this is an icy lake, then maybe we have the snow line in here, and we kind of draw people up here, but we have kind of something like this to draw the eye back. This, to me, where we have the reflection of this, looks like rocks and stuff here, I would strengthen in here a little bit of line, maybe using your blue, so that it gives a sense that the water's going in here. And I would just give a little bit of a sense of, you know, some water in here. And what that will do is that will keep that from being so dominant, because it's really drawing a lot of attention. And then I would probably do the same thing in here, just to make that a little stronger. The grays, the dark grays, the blacks are giving me a little bit of a trouble, but I think essentially just by doing these things, we've made this a little stronger. Maybe we'll put a little snow on this in a couple places, just because everything else has some snow on it. And then, you know, this stuff in here, again, you might want to mute it back. You might want to soften it, do something to just kind of reduce it so it's not drawing quite so much attention. And especially back here, you soften this back here, see how it goes into the distance. We'll talk about that when we do it. Anyway, that's the bell. That means it's time for the next one. Good job, Lisa. Good job. That's an A+. A+. Okay. A+. All right, next, what do we have? Ooh. All right, we have a sunset painting. This is Ted Hawks in Massachusetts. Ted, you're a rock star, man. Congrats for having the courage to come on here. All right, so this has got some really terrific mood. It's got some soft edges. I'm liking it. It feels really good to me. This black and white version feels really moody, and I like it. It's got a really great feel. See the softness of the edges around here, softness of the edges around here, little sharper here, really soft in the reflections, nice reflection lines. One thing I would say is typically, not always, but typically the reflections are going to be darker than what it's reflecting. So you might want to consider making that a little darker. Let's just look at this, see if we can figure that out. Let's also look, let's see here. So I'm going to make this a little darker, and we're just going to make that reflection just a little bit darker, and I think that'll help it. And this little thing here in the corner, I would get rid of that corner, and that way it's just not drawing the eye over there. And then when you do a reflection, you soften that reflection, drag some of this water in there, and drag, you know, just drag when you're using the paint, just drag it in, create some sense of softness, and that helps it quite a bit, right? Okay, now, anyway, let's look at composition, because we didn't do that. First off, I think compositionally, it's nothing dead center. That's great. Tic-tac-toe board. We're, you know, this would be kind of your primary composition point in this painting. And you've kind of done that because you've made these towers or sharper edges stand out. And I think that probably works. Let's look at the color version on this, because I'm curious what the color does. Ooh la la. All right. Now, the color changes things. See how it changes the mood? And so I have a lot of questions now. The first thing I see in this painting in the color is the color. And what I mean by that is this bright color up here in the sky. And the question is that where you want to draw the eye? And the answer is no, it's not where you want to draw the eye, I don't think, but it is lovely. So where you want to draw the eye is down here in this area here, I think. And so what you might want to look for is a way to get some of your color down in here. I'm not suggesting we don't want that color, but maybe what we do is we just go all out brighter down in here, look for some excuse to get some some, really intense colors in there. Maybe we'll get a little yellow in there. And maybe that yellow comes like right in here. Now it's like, ooh, now that other sky doesn't bother me as much, doesn't stand out as much, because if I put that bright up here, it's going to draw the eye up there. So that's kind of what I would do. Now, I will tell you that, Ted, I think that your greens need a little work. The greens feel a little, your greens are cool, and that they're in shadow, so they would be a little cool, but they feel a little cool to me. When I pick a green, what I do is I try to pick a green that's got a little bit of red in it. So let's see if I can find one that kind of has a sense of red in it. That's not it. We got to do a lot darker than that. Okay, so this is, I don't want to take a lot of time doing this, but this is just, this area in here just feels to me like it's just a little cool. If we could just warm that up just a little bit, maybe, okay, let's try this as a reflection color. And then we'll just go a little bit lighter than that as the color in these trees. And that's probably a little bit too light, but it's going to be subtle. But I think just getting a little of that coolness out of there will help. The one in front, now I wouldn't do it with the one in back. The one in back, you want to keep this pretty cool. As a matter of fact, what I do oftentimes is I'll go to purples. I'll go to a deep purple. Dun, 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 dun. Deep purple, get it? All right, so that's probably not quite the right one. Maybe it's a little bit more like that. And then I'll go back in and I'll throw some green over it, but very, very lightly. And that just kind of helps it read in the distance. You could do blue there. This one here is fine. And I think we just want this one up here to be a little bit darker, and then create your reflections in here. I think that makes the painting. And then what I would do is I would really sharpen up those edges on those towers. Not sure what the color of the towers is. I think it's about like that. So, really look to sharpen up the edge on wherever it is you want my eye to go, because that's where you want to have sharp edge and contrast, and that's going to be in this area. Anyway, I think that works. I like the fact that you can sense that the sun is over here and then it's kind of coming through here. And you can have some fun with this too, fun with Ted. You can carry some of this color, around if you wanted to a little bit, but mostly down in here, maybe even get some reds. If you go to the 𝗙𝗿𝗶𝗱 on PaintTube, he's got one on nocturnes, but on sunsets as well. And he talks about the colors, very predictable colors of a sunset, and how you get those colors in, and it can just make it read so much better. And there's a spectrum that goes from red to orange to yellow and so on. And then the other thing we've got to do here, Ted, is we got to get this color into this water, right? So the color is going to be a little different. It's going to be reflecting the sky up in here. And then we want to get some of that bright yellow, and especially try to lead the eye in somehow, by making a little bit of a pattern. And then if you wanted to, depending on the silhouette, you might be able to throw a touch of light, just a slight touch of light on the edge of something, just to kind of make it look like, oh, that's getting light. Now that's too bright. I would make that yellower light. So I'd probably make it more like, let's see if I can just fix this real quickly. All right, so maybe I'll put a little touch. I ended up making a ball on a tower there, but the idea is that you're creating a sense of light, and then you could take that yellow, and on the edge of that, you could put a little spot of light right on the top or something, and it just gives it a little bit of sense of dimension. All right, and you can put some little dots of light if it's catching something. That was fun. I like it, Ted. Next, we have what? We have a guy. They have somebody's kid. This is Joe from Ohio, and this is either a self-portrait or it is your kid or your friend or something. Anyway, nice job on this, Joe. Composition is a little tougher in a portrait. For me, I'm sure there are people who would probably know what to tell you, but I'm not one of them. And so let's just go through and ask ourselves the typical questions. And that is, okay, the hands are dead center. The object here tends to be kind of dead center, right? And so I think what could be a little bit more interesting, Ted, is, Joe, is figure out how to maybe move him over to one side, and that would help make it a little bit more interesting. So you could figure out what that looks like. And so that might just be a matter of cropping it here. And if we took all of this out, now it just makes it a little bit more interesting. You see that? The other thing I'm seeing is I see this bright spot going into his head, but then it's not continuing back here. And I'm not so sure we want that, but it does beg the question of why is it stopping there? And I can't really tell what that is back there, if this is a lake or a piece of furniture or whatever it is. So, there might be something you could do there. But anyway, I think what is happening here is, I think overall it's a really good portrait. And I think your drawing skills are pretty strong. I would say that where you need to focus is you need to focus a little bit on getting your shapes accurate. So this is what I struggle with. I'm doing life drawing once or twice a week now with models, and that really helps me a lot, especially the quick stuff. But what you want to do, if you had a photo reference, what you want to do is compare that photo reference and get an exact size, and then do some measurements. Is this eye exactly the same as this eye? And the answer is no, it's not. This eye is bigger. Now, if that head were turned, this way, this eye would be bigger than that eye. But if they're straight on, they're going to be the same. And so your eye is a little bit off. And the only other thing I would say is that the painting could use a little bit more form. And you've got some pretty good form in it, but I would, this looks to me like it was a photo taken straight on in direct light. And so what's happening here is, we're putting a lot of light on his forehead, and maybe we need to figure out how to get a little bit more form in this. So you might want to consider darkening some of these areas, some of these muscle areas, some of these darks in here, figure out how to strengthen the darks in here. And, and then ask yourself, can I change this lighting? Go into Photoshop or something and change the lighting. I think overall it's pretty strong, but you're lacking a little bit of contrast. And I think you just need some darks in here that will help it just a little bit more. Get some good darks. There's usually good darks around the eyes, and just look for ways that you can darken those. What you've done is you've blended a little bit, but if you get the contrast up a little bit, I think it's going to make a difference. Same thing in here. Let's look at the color version and see. Okay, so we've got kind of the background is just kind of playful, and I'm not so sure that this white spot is working, because it's just creating, like, why is it there? This looks to me like it, I can't tell, it might be oil, might be pastel. Let's just go ahead and, for grins, let's just fill this in and see what happens when that white spot goes away. Now it draws more attention to him. And this light stuff over here, all of this is fun, and it's really good. This stuff over here is excellent. I think if we just look at this and say, can we strengthen the light on the face? I would say that the colors are a little bit off, Joe. So there are 3 bands of color, and the 3 bands of color tend to be yellowish at the top, a little bit more reddish in this area, and typically a little bit more greenish gray in this area. That's true more so on a male portrait than a female portrait. But what would happen here is if we could just get a little bit more color in this guy's face, you've got a little bit of it in there. Let's see if I can find the right color. Just to get a sense of color on these cheeks. That's just a little bit extreme. And I would get some good darks around his eyes. See if I can find the right shade. And part of this is your photo reference is probably not great, but get some good darks around here. And get that eye just a little bit smaller. And then you want to have, create some form on this face, but it again depends on how it's lit, and it's kind of straight on, so it's a little tough to do that. But just look for a way to strengthen that a little bit, get a little bit of that gray green in here in the beard area. This is just a little bit. I'm just trying to get it right, and I'm not doing it. But anyway, this just will, if you just go gray. The other thing is that what you can do is take part of your background color. Let's say your background color is this, and you can take a variation on that color, and then use that, use that on the edges. And what will happen is if you use it on the edges, it will kind of feel like there's air. I learned that from 𝗙𝗿𝗶𝗱𝗆. And so it depends on the color. Some colors work better. But anyway, I have it, this looks kind of funky the way I've done it here, so I apologize for that. But we just have to, get it, work on it and get it right. And also, upper lip is dark, lower lip is light. That's too dark. I'm just botching this here for this guy. Lower lip, get the lower lip a little bit lighter. Right. And there's just a couple little things like that, and I think that'll help you. Anyway, I think you've got a really good start on it, and it's really nice. Your drawing, just be careful about your drawing. It seems to be a little off over here. Little tiny things. When you're doing people, you can tell. If you're doing trees, people can't tell. But, really good job on that. Okay, what do we have next? Okay, we have a 𝗙𝗵𝗁𝗆. Okay. All right. First off, I think it's really interesting. I really like it. The harbor scene is really well executed, well rendered. It's really beautifully done. Good work on the boats. Everything is looking good. And I know what you're trying to create here. You're trying to create this interesting watercolor effect of, taking the rocks or the weeds or whatever up front here. But, it's bugging me. I have to tell you, it's bugging me. It's just a bit much for me. And so what I'm asking myself is, would I crop this like this? Have a little bit of it. Would I crop it like that? Just get rid of all of that. And if you do that, what happens is it makes it a stronger painting immediately, because that big thing in the front is just drawing my eye. You can have a little of it, but it just seems to be a little bit much, because it was so overpowering. I couldn't see any of this stuff in the back. And this is such a well done painting. They're really, really well done. Now, I'm going to just pretend that's what we're going to do. And we're going to look at this from the standpoint of composition now. And so if we looked at this, dead center, we don't have any problems there. And if we look at this in our tic-tac-toe board, then, you've got some things here that that are fighting each other, and you have to figure out which one is going to get attention. But I think, overall, this is just really beautiful in here, all of this. And so I think, you don't really need to focus too much on one of these areas more than the other. But if you're going to, and we'll look at this in the color, but if you're going to, let's say you wanted to make it all about this area, then what I would probably do is I'd look for an excuse to shade some of this back so that it's not drawing quite so much edge, sharpness and so on. And then I'd look for a way to brighten up, where you want to really draw the eye and really create some contrast there. So, you've got a, good contrast on these boats and on that, right there at the focal point, not everywhere else. And that would strengthen this painting a lot. Be careful about, you've got this line going in, but what it's doing is it's really taking me out of the painting. So if you were to just take one of these rocks and put, one of those rocks right there, that would keep me from going out of the painting. Okay, let's look. Excuse me. Let's look at the color. All right. Well, that's really, really powerful. You know, with the color, you can really see the differences. And the yellow building, excuse me, yellow building is getting a lot more attention. And that really works much better, even with all this crazy blue stuff, which is really, really lovely. And I think it works really nicely here. So I'm not as worried about it now that I see it in the color, but I would say the same thing. If this is going to be your focal point, then take this house over here and mute it back a little bit, and don't draw as much attention over here. Get some of these whites muted back in here, and then, you know, pump up the whites on these boats or something. And I might even pump up the yellow a little bit more. See if you can figure out a way to, you know, to get some good light yellow in there. The yellow looks a little bit bright to me, but I'm sure that it was that way in wherever it was, Rockport or whatever. Nice job on that. Oh, let's look at one other thing. I would say that you want to be careful where you're drawing the eye. And so I would look at these whites in here, and I would just kind of maybe mute this back a little bit, mute this back, because we don't want a lot of white in there drawing the eye. This rock in the front is good. In here, right here, I like that. And, you know, look for ways that you can use something to point people back to your focal point. So you can make your rock go like that, and that just automatically points them to the back. But I like this blue wash, and I might just carry that throughout the painting a little bit more. And then it just really is working. It really takes your eye back there. And I think everything else about it is good. You're a very good painter. You get an A+. Okay, what do we have next? All right, we have what looks like a Western scene. Let's pull up the black and white version of this. And I don't see a name, but congratulations, whoever you are, for having the courage to submit this. I'm having a hard time in black and white reading what this is. It feels to me like it's rocks. It feels to me like there might be something here, maybe a pool, a fountain, or whatever. And it's just what's happening is it's just not reading for me, and I can't really tell what it is. I'm sure when we go to color, that'll change that. But it looks like there might be some steps here, but I can't tell. And I don't know where the eye should go. If we look at composition, there's no problems on horizons or dead centers. But if we do the tic-tac-toe board, then, you know, we've got one of these intersections, and I can't really tell what would be focal point. Maybe this, if I could tell what it is. So it feels to me like it's a canyon or something like that. And again, when I get to the color version, but if it doesn't read in black and white, it might be a little bit of a problem. So what I'm seeing is my sharpest edge is this. Got a pretty sharp, distinct edge here. The brightest bright in this painting is here, 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 and here, which is up front, but it's a little hard to tell. Looks like we've got a tree in here. So I think what we've got here is we've got a couple of things going on that are a little hard to distinguish. So my apologies. I don't want to beat up on you here. Let's go to the color version, because that's going to change everything. Okay, so now I can see it. Now it feels more like a canyon scene, and it just feels to me like whoever you are, your darks are really, really, really dark. And so you've done these purples, and I like purples. I like purples and shadows, and oftentimes that's what you see. But these are really, really dark passages, and it's just making the painting feel a little bit, I don't know, overwhelming. So let's see if we can figure out a color to make these shadows that might have, have a little sense of brownness to it. Brownish, bluish, maybe just a little bit lighter. When you get darks, you want to keep your darks looking pretty transparent, and you don't want them to be too dark. And wherever your darkest dark is it's going to be kind of in the focal point. So I'm going to take this color here over here, and I'm just going to look for something that's a little darker, but maybe not quite as dark, and just try to ask myself, would that make a difference? I don't know. I'm having trouble, but I think what I would do, it feels to me like we haven't figured out where the focal point's going to be, and I'm just going to make something up. I'm going to say, well, it's probably these rocks, maybe where you've got all this color, but you've got color here, got white here, and it's just a little all over the map. So let's ask ourselves what we could do immediately. I think the first thing I would do is I would look for a way to soften up and lighten up this background, because we want it to go distant, and we're going to talk about distance in a minute anyway. But what if we just try to figure out how to make this all go back in the distance? So because and what you're going to want to watch the atmospheric perspective thing that I do. If you can make that go back in the distance and figure out how to just make this read a little like, maybe there's a valley or something there, and maybe there's a little bit of light in here once in a while. So that helps it right away. Now what this can become is more about the rocks. And then, you have to ask yourself, okay, what do we want to emphasize? So maybe it's this rock here. Wherever you want to emphasize it, try to get, some good sharp values. And maybe, maybe the goal is to pull people down to here, which if that's the case, maybe make this your brightest spot, bring people down. And, maybe a little bit of light hitting on here. It's hard to know without a reference. And then this stuff in the middle ground, I would probably lighten that up too, is you want it to be, it's fighting you. And so just by getting some of this other stuff, this tree, you can silhouette a tree. Just now what's happening is we're making it all about the rocks, right? So look how different that feels just by doing it that way. It just brings it alive, because, and then you've got these white spots in the front here. I would just look for a way to get these shadows, get the white spots out of the front, because what you want to do is ask yourself, where do I really want to draw the eye? And I think this circle thing is interesting. So that might be where we're going to put some kind of a white-ish spot. Maybe look for a way to really draw attention to that. And I'm not sure what it is. That's the thing. But just look for a couple of spots in here to really draw the eye, and not make them everywhere up here, because you want to kind of keep it where your focal point area is going to be. And so maybe we lighten up some of or we put some more shadow in here, and we just try to create a sense of, there's some texture in these rocks, there's something going on. And then this one over here, maybe we just darken that a little bit and get it kind of out of the way, because it's not really lending a lot to us. Get that out of the way. So that's the question, is how do you take a painting and figure out what's right for it? I also think this is too blue in here. So I think that, just look at that and what a difference something like that makes. I don't know if this is a pool or what it is. If it was a pool, maybe I'd put some water in it, just to really draw attention to it. Anyway, good attempt on this. Let's see what we've got next. All right, we're going to talk about technique. I want to talk about atmospheric perspective. And atmospheric perspective is that if you have a scene, what you want, first off, about perspective. Perspective is you want something that looks like it's going into the distance, right? Hang on a second. So that's perspective. So you're going through perspective, and you want to keep perspective in mind when you're doing painting, because, for instance, your clouds will be in perspective. So like if you have clouds, it's going to be kind of like this. So your bigger clouds, your littler clouds are going to be kind of like this, and then they're going to get a little bigger, and then they're going to get a little bigger, and then they're going to be really big up here. But that creates the sense of perspective. You see that? And you might have a mountain or something down here. But atmospheric perspective is a little bit different. And I pulled up some things on the internet. I don't know who they belong to, so my apologies to those people. But let's just pull up something that really shows atmospheric perspective. Now, this is a one color painting plus white. This is a dark blue plus white. And what the artist has done on this, whoever the artist is, and I can't give you credit because I don't see your name, but what they have done is, and I'll point this out, they have made it dark in the front, and then it's a little lighter, and then a little lighter, then a little bluer and lighter, and then lighter and bluer, and so on. So what happens is that you want things to look darker in the front. Here's another example of this. Dark in the front, and then it goes back and recedes into the distance. So let's see if we can find an example of this. The other thing happens is that colors change. So here is, I pulled this off from arthints.com. Let's give them props. And that's Hans Peter's photo. Thank you, Hans. So as things are nearer, they're darker, and then they go further in to recede. So you can see they're receding here, receding way back. So that creates the sense of atmosphere. And so that's a really good thing to know. The other thing to know is that you want high contrast in the front, and then your contrast reduces as you go back. So things that, the reality is that these trees in front are as dark as these trees in here, but because there's atmosphere in it, think of it like there's, if you're looking, this is the eye, right? If you're looking through sheets of glass that have had sprayed water on them, right? So the right up front, you don't see much water, but you see a lot more water in between here, and there's a whole lot more water in between here, and a whole lot more water in between here. And what that does is it creates this foggy effect, this sense of distance, and that is what creates your sense of atmosphere. Now, the other thing I want to show, there was another one in here. This one I thought was really good, and again, I don't know who the artist is, my apologies. But this one, it's not a very good image. It's a good painting, but not a good image. But this shows how things get grayer into the distance, because what happens is things are more yellow in the front, and yellow disappears as you go back, and things get bluer. It's just the way the light works. And so that's something. Here's another example of, where it's warmer in the front and it's cooler in the back. And because of that atmosphere, if you were to look through those pieces of glass, it's pushing you back there. And so this is a really good example. I don't know who did this either. I found this by searching atmospheric perspective. We want to find that artist and give them props. But this, you can see that things are colorful, they're warm in the front, and then they kind of recede. The colors kind of get purpler and more muted and more muted and more muted and bluer and bluer and bluer and bluer as you go back in distance. That is a really good example. So when you're creating your atmospheric perspective, that what you want to do is, first off, I think it's a good idea to do it as a value study, but get your good strong darks up front, whatever you're if they're silhouetting a tree, get your strong darks up front, and then what you want to do is just kind of make it go back. It's a little bit lighter, and as I said, Frank Serrano really pushes things, so he would probably push that right there a lot lighter, right there, maybe a lot lighter, and then it's going to get lighter as it goes back, and really it gets bluer as it goes back too. And so look for that. That will make a giant difference in your life if you can make things, oops, that's not it. But the idea is that, whatever's in the background, it's going to be bluer. Let's see if we can do this. So this is going to be bluer. And then we're going to put a mountain in front of it. And it is going to be darker. See that? And then we're going to put a mountain in front of that. And it's going to be even darker still. And we're going to put a mountain in front of that. And it's going to be darker still. Let's make it really dark. And then, you know, and then as you get closer, then you can start putting in colors, you know, so you're going to be able to start seeing colors because the yellows are going to become more visible. So that's essentially how that works. That's atmospheric perspective. Okay. Now, a couple of things I want to tell you about real quickly. I am doing this retreat. I got my numbers yesterday. There are 80 people coming so far. The limit is 100. And so I was right about that. There are 20 left. And it's going to be basically painting all week outdoors in Hilton Head Island and Savannah, Georgia. I've always wanted to paint in both of those places. And it's a fun week. No work, no drama, no chores. We feed you. We put you up. We're going to be staying in a hotel on the ocean. We've taken over most of the hotel, maybe the whole thing. And we're going to go painting every day. We're going to give you a paint map. We're going to tell you where we're going. You can go on your own. You can go with your friends. But we go out and we paint every day. We have our meals together in the mornings. We give you a boxed lunch. And then that way we stay out painting. We give you dinner together. We have games. We have announcements. We have music. We do all kinds of things. It's a lot of fun. And it's called Winter Escape because Elaine Miller sent me a photo, and I don't have it in front of me here. But she was showing me that this is going to be record cold weather. And February is going to be awful. So go ahead and book now. You know you're going to hate that. And you want to be painting. You want to be hanging out with friends. Go ahead and book it now. That's at winterartescape.com. We have Watercolor Live is coming up in January. Let's play that promo for Watercolor Live very quickly. World's largest conference on watercolor painting. People from countries all over the world attending. You're going to get to meet them. You're going to get to collaborate. You can ask questions of the teachers, and you're going to watch demos for 3 days. Great demos. And when you leave, you have what I call transformation. You will be able to push yourself within that week to the next level. And then you come back next year after that. You keep pushing yourself further and further and further. Most of the people come back. This is our 5th one or 6th one, and most people have been there most things. So we would love to have you. Last but not least, we would love it if you come to our plein air convention. It's like nirvana for plein air painters. So that's coming up in the Ozarks this year. Check it out at pleinairconvention.com. Okay, so we have a free video for you if you're an artist. Just go to 97artsecrets.com/ASL. Make sure to subscribe to this program. It's on YouTube and it's on a lot of other platforms, but subscribe on YouTube. Just go to Art School Live and hit the subscribe button. The little bell gives you notification when we go live. We'd love it if you do that. Give me a follow at Eric Rhoads on all your social media. I'm posting things daily on Instagram and oftentimes my other social media. So make sure you check that out. And thank you for being here. We believe anybody can learn to paint. And we will be here again on Monday for Marketing Monday. And then Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday next week, we're going to be having people teaching you. But if you go into our archive on YouTube and find any 5 shows where we're teaching painting, you watch 5 shows, it will give you the confidence that you need to say, you know what, I can do this. I can paint. Hey, thank you guys for being here today. I'm Eric Rhoads, and we love you guys. We love the fact that you're learning to paint, that you're growing, and that you're collaborating and giving comments. Say hi in the comments. Make sure you say where you're from. And we will see you next week, God willing. Bye-bye.